Most people reach their 50s believing omega-3 is one of the safest, smartest choices for long-term health. You buy a familiar bottle, take it daily, and trust that you are doing something responsible for your heart, your brain, and your joints. For many older adults, this routine feels steady and reassuring. The habit looks right, the intention is good, and the consistency is often impressive. Yet, when we look more closely at how omega-3 is actually being used after 50, a different picture appears. In real-world observations, close to 9 out of 10 adults over this age are taking omega-3 in a way that does not deliver the support they expect. Blood markers often remain unchanged. Energy does not shift. Mental clarity feels no different than before. Joint comfort stays much the same. This leads many people to assume the answer is age itself. But in many cases, aging is not the limiting factor. The more common issue is a small misunderstanding at a very basic level, not about effort, not about discipline, but about what omega-3 actually is and how the body uses it later in life. A single misunderstanding can quietly turn years of consistent use into a routine that offers very little return. At the same time, one clear correction can realign omega-3 with what the body is actually prepared to receive after 50. If you are currently taking omega-3 or thinking about it for long-term health, it is worth staying with this discussion carefully and attentively. Over time, many people begin to explain stalled results with a single familiar word: aging. After 50, it feels reasonable to assume that slower changes, lingering stiffness, or unchanged lab numbers are simply part of getting older. This explanation is comforting in a way. If age is the cause, then effort no longer matters, and disappointment feels easier to accept. Yet, when we look carefully at how the body responds later in life, a different pattern emerges. Plenty of adults in their 60s and 70s are attentive, consistent, and committed to daily habits, including omega-3, yet still see very little movement where they expected change. This gap between effort and outcome often leads to confusion. People do not skip doses. They do not rush. They follow the routine exactly as suggested. The issue, however, is not the amount of effort being applied. It is the assumption that omega-3 works like a simple pill. Omega-3 is not a generic supplement that pushes the body in a certain direction. It is raw biological material. The body does not respond to it automatically, and it does not respond equally at every stage of life. After 50, the body becomes more selective about what it can use and how efficiently it can use it. When omega-3 arrives in a form the body cannot readily recognize or process, it does not matter how long it has been taken. In those cases, the routine continues, but the biology does not shift. This is why the same action can produce very different outcomes in different people, even when age appears similar. Understanding omega-3 as biological input rather than a simple capsule begins to change how results are interpreted. Over the years, one name has come to represent omega-3 almost entirely. That name is DHA. You see it highlighted on labels, advertisements, and articles about memory, vision, and brain health. The message becomes familiar and reassuring. If DHA is present, the supplement must be doing its job. This focus did not happen by accident. DHA plays an important role in the structure of brain and nerve cells, and research around cognition has brought it steady attention. For many people, especially after 50, that message settles in quietly and becomes the whole story. But biologically, DHA is only one part of omega-3. It does not function in isolation, and it was never meant to. Omega-3 is a system made up of different fatty acids, each with a distinct role. When attention narrows to DHA alone, half of that system is often overlooked. That missing half is EPA. Earlier in life, the body may tolerate this imbalance without obvious signals. As the years pass, however, the demands placed on circulation, metabolism, and daily resilience begin to change. EPA becomes increasingly relevant in this stage of life. not because it replaces DHA, but because it complements it. Without enough EPA present, omega-3 remains incomplete no matter how consistent the routine appears. This is where many well-intentioned choices quietly fall short. A product may emphasize DHA, heavily satisfy expectations on the label, and still fail to match what the body is prepared to use after 50. At this point, omega-3 may still be taken faithfully, but the message it delivers to the body is only partial. When omega-3 is viewed correctly, it no longer looks like a single nutrient. It functions as a coordinated system where different components deliver different instructions to the body. EPA and DHA work alongside one another, not in competition and not interchangeably. Each sends a distinct biological signal, and the body expects to receive both in order to respond fully. When this balance is present, omega-3 supports multiple systems at the same time. Circulation remains more adaptable. Blood vessels respond with greater ease rather than rigidity. The brain receives structural support without being overstimulated. When one side of that balance is missing, the message becomes incomplete. The body does not reject omega-3 outright, but its response becomes limited and uneven. This is why a formula heavy in DHA alone may appear logical, yet still leave important needs unmet later in life. DHA contributes to brain and nerve structure, but it does not carry the full signal required for vascular and metabolic stability as the years progress. EPA fills that gap. It plays a central role in how the body manages internal stress, particularly within blood vessels and circulation. Without it, omega-3 cannot deliver the full range of support the aging body is prepared to use. As people move into their 60s and 70s, this balance becomes more relevant, not less. The systems that quietly sustain daily function rely on clarity of biological input rather than quantity alone. When EPA and DHA arrive together in the proportions the body recognizes, omega-3 begins to act as a coordinated signal instead of a fragmented one. At this point, another common misunderstanding quietly enters the picture, especially among older adults who value tradition and long-standing habits. Many people assume that cod liver oil and omega-3 are essentially the same thing. The reasoning feels logical. Cod liver oil comes from fish. It has been used for generations. It carries a sense of reliability passed down over time, but nutritionally, cod liver oil and omega-3 serve very different purposes. Cod liver oil is primarily a source of fat-soluble vitamins, especially vitamins A and D. Its omega-3 content, particularly EPA, is often much lower than people realize. This distinction matters more with age. When someone takes cod liver oil expecting omega-3 support, the body may receive vitamins it does not currently need while missing the specific fatty acids it was actually prepared to use. Vitamin A deserves particular attention here. Unlike water-soluble nutrients, it is stored rather than cleared quickly. Over long periods, especially in older adults, intake can quietly exceed what the body comfortably manages. This helps explain a pattern many people experience. They take cod liver oil faithfully for years. They remain consistent. Yet markers related to circulation, daily comfort, or metabolic balance show little change. The routine feels correct, but the biological input does not match the expectation. What looks like omega-3 support on the surface may, in reality, be something quite different inside the body. This quiet mismatch often goes unnoticed because it does not create immediate signals. For many people over 50, the experience follows a familiar pattern. Omega-3 becomes part of the morning routine. The bottle sits in the same place. A capsule is taken every day, often for years, without interruption. There is a quiet sense of discipline in this. Nothing is skipped. Nothing is rushed. The habit feels dependable. Then routine checkups arrive. Numbers look much the same as before. Patterns that were expected to shift remain steady. Daily comfort does not noticeably change. This moment can feel confusing. Effort has been consistent. Time has passed, yet the outcome does not reflect the commitment. The reason for this disconnect is often misunderstood. It is not that omega-3 suddenly stops working with age. It is that omega-3 only works when the body can actually use what is being provided. Biology does not respond to intention. It responds to availability. If omega-3 arrives in a form that is poorly absorbed, much of it simply moves through the digestive system without becoming part of the body's active processes. If the balance between its components is mismatched, the signal remains incomplete even when taken faithfully. As the body gets older, this distinction becomes more important. The margin for inefficiency narrows. Conversion steps that once happened easily become less reliable. This explains why consistency alone does not guarantee visible change. The routine may be steady, but the biological delivery is not. When omega-3 fails to reach the tissues that recognize it, the body remains largely unchanged, no matter how long the habit continues. As the body moves into the 60s and beyond, another quiet shift takes place, one that is easy to overlook. The digestive system no longer handles nutrients with the same ease it once did. This change is gradual. Meals still feel normal. Appetite may remain steady. Nothing dramatic announces that absorption has become less efficient, yet inside this everyday routine, the body becomes more selective about what it can actually take in and use. Nutrients that once entered circulation smoothly may now require more precise conditions to become available. Omega-3 is especially affected by this shift. Certain forms rely on additional metabolic steps before the body can make use of them. Earlier in life, those steps happen quietly. Later on, they may no longer keep pace. This is how capsules can be taken consistently, yet contribute very little. The routine continues, but much of the omega-3 never becomes biologically active. From the outside, nothing appears wrong. From the inside, the signal simply does not arrive. This is an important distinction. The body does not respond to how long a supplement has been taken. It responds to what actually reaches circulation in a usable form. After 60, availability matters more than persistence. Without sufficient absorption, even the right ingredients remain largely unused. When omega-3 is chosen with the right balance and absorbed in a form the body can use, the response looks very different from what many people expect. There is rarely a sudden sensation or dramatic signal. Instead, changes appear quietly, often first on routine lab work or in day-to-day stamina. In adults over 60, circulation is often the first area where this shift becomes noticeable. Blood moves with less resistance when vessel walls remain flexible rather than rigid. The heart no longer has to push against the same level of internal strain throughout the day. This matters because the cardiovascular system works continuously, even at rest. Small improvements in how blood flows can translate into steadier energy and less fluctuation during normal activity. Triglycerides are another area where correct omega-3 use shows consistent patterns. When these blood fats remain elevated, circulation becomes thicker and less efficient over time. With adequate EPA and DHA available, many people begin to see these numbers move in a more favorable direction. This is especially relevant after 60, when triglycerides often rise quietly, even in individuals who feel otherwise well. Lower levels allow blood to move more freely, supporting daily function without calling attention to itself. For older adults, these changes are not about pushing the body harder. They reflect a system that is no longer working against unnecessary internal resistance. When omega-3 is delivered in a form the body recognizes, it supports cardiovascular balance in a way that aligns with how the body naturally adapts with age. Another area where correct omega-3 use becomes noticeable is blood pressure behavior throughout the day. For many adults over 60, the concern is not a single reading in a clinic, but the quiet ups and downs that happen between morning and evening. When blood vessels are less adaptable, pressure tends to fluctuate more easily with stress, movement, or even changes in posture. When omega-3 is available in a form the body can use, vessels tend to respond with more ease rather than resistance. The result is not a dramatic drop. Instead, the pattern often looks steadier, with fewer sharp swings that place ongoing strain on the system. This same underlying process connects closely with how the body experiences everyday stiffness. Low-grade background irritation can remain present without drawing attention, especially in joints that carry weight or repeat the same motions daily. When EPA and DHA are delivered in balance, many people notice that mornings feel different. Movement begins with less hesitation. The body seems more willing to ease into activity rather than resist it. This does not feel like a sudden change. It feels gradual and quiet, often noticed only after several weeks of consistency with the correct form. For older adults, this kind of subtle shift matters. It reflects a system that is no longer carrying unnecessary internal tension as part of daily life. As omega-3 becomes available in the right balance, its role in the brain begins to show in quiet, practical ways, not as a sudden surge of sharpness, but as a steadier sense of clarity during ordinary moments. DHA is a structural component of brain cells. It helps maintain the physical integrity of the membranes that allow nerve cells to communicate smoothly with one another. When enough DHA is present, signaling tends to feel more organized rather than scattered. Many older adults describe this not as thinking faster, but as thinking with less effort. Words come a bit more easily. Focus feels less strained during reading or conversation. Alongside this, EPA contributes in a different way. It is involved in how the brain manages internal signaling related to mood and emotional regulation. When EPA is insufficient, emotional responses can feel more reactive or less settled, even without an obvious cause. With adequate EPA available, emotional balance often feels more even across the day. Small stressors feel easier to absorb. The nervous system seems less prone to over-respond. For people in their 60s and 70s, this combination matters. Mental clarity and emotional steadiness are closely connected, especially as daily routines change and life becomes less predictable. When DHA and EPA arrive together in usable form, the brain receives both structural support and regulatory balance. There are moments in life when the body is placed under greater biological demand, even when daily routines remain unchanged. Periods of physical stress, medical recovery, or long-term medication use quietly increase the workload on several systems at once. During these phases, the body is not asking for stimulation or force. It is asking for steady support that does not add additional strain. Omega-3, when used correctly, tends to fit into these moments in a particular way. It does not override normal processes. It provides foundational material that the body can draw from while managing increased demands. In times of higher metabolic stress, energy use becomes less efficient. Muscle tissue may feel harder to maintain. Appetite and stamina can fluctuate without clear warning. Adequate EPA availability has been observed to support the body's ability to navigate these periods with less internal friction. Recovery presents a similar picture. After physical procedures or extended illness, circulation and tissue signaling work continuously in the background. When omega-3 is present in a usable form, it can support smoother adjustment during this recovery window without accelerating or interfering with natural healing rhythms. Certain systems benefit quietly from this kind of support. The kidneys, which continuously manage filtration demands, rely on stable microcirculation over time. The nervous system depends on intact signaling pathways and balanced surroundings to function consistently. In these contexts, omega-3 is not a treatment strategy. It is part of the background environment the body uses to maintain equilibrium when resilience is temporarily tested. This role becomes more relevant with age, as recovery often takes longer and margins become narrower. Once omega-3 is understood as biological input rather than a generic supplement, the way it is chosen naturally begins to change. The front of the bottle becomes less important, and the details on the label start to matter much more. Many products highlight a large number on the front, often referring to total fish oil content. This can be misleading. What the body actually uses are two specific components, EPA and DHA. Turning the bottle around usually tells a clearer story. If EPA and DHA are not clearly listed, or if the amounts are very small compared to the total oil, the product offers limited biological value. The rest is simply carrier oil that does not actively participate in the processes discussed earlier. Source also plays an important role. Omega-3 comes from environments that vary widely in quality. Without proper purification, unwanted residues can remain, adding unnecessary burden rather than support, especially for older adults. This is why clean sourcing matters. Highly purified fish oil and algae-based omega-3 are commonly preferred because they reduce uncertainty around contaminants. Clean input allows the body to focus on use rather than processing excess. Absorption deserves equal attention. Some forms of omega-3 are closer to how fats naturally appear in food and are more readily taken up. Others require additional steps before becoming available. As those conversion steps become less reliable with age, form becomes more important than brand, language, or packaging. Independent certification helps clarify this landscape. When a product has been tested by a recognized third party, it confirms that EPA and DHA amounts match the label and that oxidation and impurities remain within safe limits. These seals are not decorative. They reduce guesswork. Choosing omega-3 with this level of precision shifts the experience from hope-based supplementation to informed biological support. Once the right omega-3 is selected, the next variable that shapes the outcome is how it is used day to day. Dose and timing quietly influence whether the body treats omega-3 as background nutrition or meaningful biological input. For general maintenance, many adults do well with a modest daily amount that supports everyday balance rather than targeting a specific concern. This level is meant to sustain stability, not to drive visible change. When the goal becomes more focused, such as supporting circulation patterns or lipid balance, the body often requires a higher intake of active EPA and DHA. At this point, the number printed on the front of the bottle matters far less than the combined amount of these two fatty acids actually reaching the body. Timing also shapes absorption. Omega-3 is more readily taken up when it arrives alongside a meal that contains some fat. Food signals the digestive system to engage absorption pathways, allowing more of the fatty acids to enter circulation rather than passing through unused. Many people find that earlier meals are easier to pair with omega-3 than late evening dosing. For some, taking it too late can feel stimulating rather than supportive. There are also situations where extra awareness is important. Individuals using medications that influence blood clotting should be mindful, as omega-3 has its own gentle effect in this area. Those preparing for surgical procedures are often advised to pause supplementation ahead of time to allow normal clotting balance to return. People with certain heart rhythm patterns should avoid adjusting doses on their own, particularly at higher levels. Those with seafood sensitivities may prefer non-fish sources to reduce the chance of unwanted reactions. In these cases, omega-3 remains a supportive option, but one that benefits from thoughtful coordination rather than assumption. Across everything discussed, one pattern remains consistent. The body does not respond to how long a habit has been repeated. It responds to how accurately that habit aligns with biology. This is especially true later in life. More effort does not automatically produce better outcomes. Clear understanding does. Omega-3 is a useful example of this principle. Taken casually, it may change very little. Chosen with intention and used with precision, it becomes something the body can actually work with. This is not about doing more. It is about doing one thing correctly instead of repeating something imprecise for years. When choices are guided by understanding rather than assumption, routines become supportive instead of frustrating. Small adjustments made with clarity tend to last longer than dramatic changes made in haste. If this explanation has helped you look at omega-3 with fresh perspective, you can support this work by liking the video. You are welcome to subscribe for more discussions focused on thoughtful, evidence-based health choices. And if you know someone over 50 who may benefit from clear information, sharing this video can make a meaningful difference. A single informed adjustment today can quietly shape health over the years ahead.